I'm alive. Yo,
Alive and live.
I haven't ran on the beach in a while. I've been trying to just run on the trail, and my knee, like I'm trying to make 4 miles a morning, like my new normal. I've only done it once, man. I usually like my knee starts caving in, or I start having knee problems, like on mile three, and I keep having to tap out. I don't know if eventually I'm just going to be conditioned, or if like that's literally like my physical limit before I injure myself. So it seems like you don't have that problem. You're just saying, "Oh, you know what? Forget a half marathon. I'm just going to do a marathon because I'm Sean, and that's what I do." So like,
Well, I'm not doing a full marathon, but it's
I thought you were.
no, it's 26K, not a 26 mile. Um, the 26K is so the half marathon loops a lake, and the lake is about three miles longer than the half marathon distance. So if I go the extra 5K worth of distance, it's covers it. But I know what you mean. I mean, I had some knee pain after the last 10K that I did, but I just rested for, I didn't run on it for like a week or half a week or something like that. And once it felt better, then I started going again. So I don't run every day though. I mean, so I know people do, but I don't know. Maybe the problem is just going too gung ho too quickly on it. If you weren't doing a lot of running before, and maybe it's just kind of like an chronic injury now. But if you left, I don't know, did you rest for a few days in between things, or
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think I ran like once when I was in Canada, and I that went pretty well. And then like it got cold, and so I used that excuse to not run anymore. And then once I got back in the states, I restarted again. And so like I'm a lot leaner now because of like that routine that I'm trying to make normal into my
Mhm.
rituals in the morning. So I mean I probably shed like 20 pounds, but I don't know. It's maybe I should start running on the beach because when I was running on the beach, I don't remember like experiencing like these type of issues. Like when I run on the beach, like almost every time I start running, like my knee is bothering me at the very beginning, and then things kind of get loose or whatever, and like the pain kind of goes away or it subsides some. On the beach, like my knee doesn't hurt like the longer I run on the beach. The longer I run, the more I'm battling myself mentally, because I have the little angel or demon on my shoulder telling me, "Oh, Scott, you done too much. Why don't you just chill out?" Right? And I'm like, okay, and I stop running on the beach. Right? So it's not that, but
Yeah.
when I'm running on a trail, like it's different. Like my knee starts like bothering me the longer I run, which is different from the beach. So I don't know if the beach is kind of like stretching things out because the sand is soft and my feet aren't always flat when I'm digging into it for the next stride. I don't know. Maybe I'm starting to think maybe I should just mix it up and do some beach and then some trail.
Yeah, it's probably a form thing. I mean, just in, I mean, I don't know a whole lot about form, but I know that there's a lot of problems if you don't have good form that can happen. Um, I suppose with the beach, yeah, it's a lot more padded and just changes your form a little bit. So I have shoulder issues usually around 2 or 3 miles in. The shoulder, not always, but the shoulder will start to just have intense pain right here or right in here. And I usually like I'll sit and I'll try to do this, but it doesn't really help much. I'll try shifting my neck, and eventually it just goes away. But it sometimes it's really like debilitating during the run. depressing. But yeah, if my knee was that way all the time, I don't know. But it just could be like the machinery, the physics, and how that's being. And plus, if you had any past injuries or anything like that,
Hmm.
like it all comes into play, I suppose.
I submitted a bug to Microsoft. Take two. I submitted a bug to Microsoft for this service bus client um, instance, like basically getting a not implemented exception on the constructor.
Hmm.
It used to work before, it doesn't work now.
Not
That's what
implemented on the constructor.
yeah.
Jeez.
Like when I knew it up, I get a not implemented exception. So
Hmm.
like, and what how do I say this? Is what I'm doing like, is what I'm doing or am what I'm doing? I don't know what the grammar is. Is is what I'm doing that bleeding edge that I have to support, or I have to submit a Microsoft ticket like every other month and then wait 2 3 months for it to get resolved?
No, I mean creating a topic or whatever consumer publisher, whatever you're doing in this thing, um, isn't exactly bleeding edge. But
F- from a mobile client?
uh, well, yeah, I don't know about that.
Because I mean,
Usually, there's like a because of security reasons. I mean, most people don't connect directly into their service bus from a client, like from a like a front end client or a edge client or whatever. You know what I mean?
right?
Um,
Because most people aren't building a gig economy type application.
well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if service buses would be used that way in that type of thing. I mean, event like event streaming. I just I think that there would usually be like a thin API in front of it, and then like everything would go through that. Um,
Yeah. So like Microsoft support, they want. I mean, I thought I provided enough details in Stack Overflow, but they want me to send them a solution file, and they want me to try all these other different versions after I told them that I did try another version and that didn't work either, and they want me to try other versions. I'm like, can you guys do this? Like, why am I being your like Microsoft? Why do I feel like I'm being Microsoft support in diagnosing this instead of you guys doing this?
hmm.
So, I mean, that's the way I feel. I feel like they're having me do a separate project just to diagnose it, and I feel like that's their job to do, not mine.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they should just be able to look at the code and say, "Oh, here's the where we throw a not implemented exception," because those are pretty obvious when you have them.
I expect them to attempt to reproduce it on their own, and if they can't, then they to ask me if I can reproduce it in a separate solution. That's what I expect. I don't expect them to have me literally set up a new project and do a whole bunch of other stuff. So
Hmm.
yeah, man. So that pretty much halted my development. And I mean that bug was discovered last week. And I mean I'm getting to the point where like this is now like impeding my progress because I'm now pushing everything into a QA environment, and now I'm testing the I'm testing these deployed uh, endpoints, making sure that they work, so that then I could start testing it in the field from the beach or from a parking lot. And so I'm not really sure how to progress until this gets resolved.
Hmm.
Swear to God, this is bleeding edge, man. On a different note, I'm interviewing for positions that have requirements for Azure now. So
Cool.
compensation expectations are going up. So hopefully, I could unlock that achievement. I treat my career like a video game. I feel like it's just a whole bunch of achievements waiting to be unlocked. So
Yeah, well, hopefully something turns up for you. You got any? Are you actually interviewing actively then?
yeah.
Any good leads so far?
Is the question like, are there any places that like I'm really excited about?
Yeah.
Like, no, they're all going through recruiters, and like based on my experience, the recruiters really they have limited knowledge about the actual space, and so like I feel as if I'm a unicorn developer where like I actually care about the type of business problem that they're solving. And like when I get contacted by like recruiters, like I want to know the space. I want to know like what they're trying to solve because I'm like genuinely interested in the challenge. And a lot of times it's like, oh, well, it's in this industry, but we don't really have the details of what they're actually like doing. But it's different forms, or but it's Azure. Like everything is still about technologies. That's what the emphasis is on. And I mean,
Yeah.
I guess that's important, but that doesn't excite me.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I know
like,
exactly what you mean.
hey, like if I'm a licensed electrician or something, hey, I got this awesome opportunity for you. It requires a screwdriver, a hammer, and a measuring tape. Do you have that? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to submit you for this rate. Well, hold up. Well, what's the facility like, and what are the symptoms of what they're like experiencing? Like, what's the actual problem? Is this like a new project? Like, are they constructing a new facility? Is this residential or is this commercial? Right? Is this a backfill position? If it is, like, what happened? Like, I'm interested in those questions. Not, yeah, I have a hammer. Yeah, I have a screwdriver. Yeah, I have a measuring tape. That,
Yeah.
I don't really care about that.
Yeah, I've used a hammer before. Well, they're looking for someone with hammer
How
experience.
many years of
So,
experience do you have? 3 years?
with the hammer.
Off and on, yeah. I got about 20 years with the hammer. Okay, what about a screwdriver? Well, I have flathead and Phillips. Which one specifically are you asking about? It doesn't say in the job description. It just says how many years with the screwdriver is mandatory is 3. Okay, well, I've been using a Phillips screwdriver for probably 5 years off and on. Okay, okay. Um,
We
and
could this
how,
could be a skit on like a should we should do a YouTube skit about this. Like
I'm
a little
down.
skit video.
I'm a
Like
terrible actor. I mean, you saw the my acting in the mockumentary I was in.
yeah. Yeah, well you're doing a pretty good job at coming up with it on the fly.
But
It's like
that's literally. I mean, you probably don't deal with recruiters as much, but that's how it usually goes.
yeah, I've dealt with it just enough to know to know it's funny because it's true. But yeah, I had the exact same thing where it's like when I was kind of getting I back into it or after I left my last gig and was really looking for stuff, it was dealing with the recruiters because I would get calls and like, oh hey, here's the opportunities and stuff like that, but they never really wanted to share details about the actual thing because I think that they're afraid they're going to go around you and that's how they make their money.
Yeah.
Um, but and I don't know that there's any reason. Like, is there any legalities that they keep that from you? I don't know, but it's like, oh yeah, I, you know, they won't really tell you anything until you say like, yeah, I'm interested in it or whatever. And then they get you like they submit you, and then they'll like open up. So I think once they maybe peg you as a lead, then they're kind of like in the money, regardless of how you get there.
Yeah, but they don't have to tell me the name of the client. They can just tell me what the space is and what the problem they're trying to solve is. I don't think that
Yeah,
discloses anything.
yeah, and maybe they just don't know. I don't know, but yeah, it is silly how the entire recruiting industry around developers um,
What is this?
is kind of dumb. But it's like, yeah, you like I kind of wanted to be in the space that in a particular space. Like I don't want to be connected to something I have no connection to whatsoever. So like my current job, I've got kind of a connection to the type of because my brother-in-law is a uh, owns that store, game store. So I've kind of got a connection to the type of people that we're trying to serve and help and you know work with. So, but like I think I interviewed for one that was like a document court document, or was it real estate document thing? Can't remember what they were. And it's like, yeah, I've used those services before. Uh, yeah, real estate recording services. I've used those kinds of things before, but am I particularly passionate about real estate documents? Absolutely not.
Uh,
So, and I don't know, people like there's so much focus on the like technology side of things. I think that there is like I don't know, maybe there's a different types of developers. I've been trying to think of like an archetype system for developers, like developers fit into these certain archetypes. There's definitely like a breed of developer who's just really interested in technology,
that's most of them.
but just the technology, like and like how can I use these new technologies um and they're so focused on that, like damn the actual
Well, yeah, it's resume driven development,
yeah.
right? The recruiters kind of like are the catalyst. So they'll say, "We'll pay this amount per hour if you have Angular or you have React," right? And so like, okay, that's how I was with WPF. Look, I was a full time employee, like associate engineer, which I think is like below a junior engineer.
Mhm.
And so I was making like maybe 63,000 as a salaried employee, and like somehow I came across the hourly rate of a WPF developer, and it was like $90 an hour. What did I do? Well, I'm not going to get any experience on my current job to learn WPF. So I was like, F that. I'm not to start a study group with whoever is willing to like go to the cafe and review like chapters with me on WPF, and I'm going to like study this certification book. And yeah, so make a long story short, like I think when recruiters say, "Hey, this skill set is going to pay this amount," and I translate it as, "Hey, this skill set is going to change your life," right? Same thing with like why I'm so driven on like Azure, even though I should have, in hindsight, it should have been AWS. Is because it's life altering, right? You make another 30, $40,000 on top of like what you're used to making. To me, it's life altering, and I think that's why so many of us get stuck on the technology because that's the carrot that's dangled in front of us. So
Yeah,
that's a good metaphor, right? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I like, but for me, it's like I've been more interested in the product development side of things than the technology side. And that's a weird place for developer to be in because there's not a lot of avenues for like growth and development around those types of skills. Like you're kind of expected to stay in your lane in a lot of places. Like you're a developer, you know, you shouldn't worry yourself with this. You know, here's another ticket.
Yeah,
Just go work on this code. It's like, no, I want to be involved in figuring out what we're building too,
yeah.
from beginning to
There's
end, like all the way.
there's like the programmer, which is like the ultimate data entry clerical work. Because I feel that's what developers are. Like they don't take ownership to actually demonstrate that they're a collaborator. They ask permission way too much for things that they should be doing professionally on their own. Like, is it okay if I write some automated tests? Like the immaturity of that. And so I think we're just glorified clerical analysts. What's the word? Clerical is data entry, right? Or no?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Clerks. Yeah.
we're highly paid data entry people. That's the way we behave, right? And we're not treated as collaborators. So
Yeah. Which
my
kind of
biggest
stinks because,
problem is I think I'm a partner, even though I don't get paid the same amount of as the other like big wigs at organizations. But I just assume that I'm a partner, and I assume that what I advise is going to be strongly considered because I'm part of the cabinet, right? Even though they like the presidential cabinet, like I feel like I'm part of the cabinet. And so there's a huge disconnect with leadership and myself because I feel like I'm part of leadership. Even though I don't make leadership money, I assume I'm part of leadership and I'm part of the cabinet and I am an advisor. And that's the biggest hangups with a lot of organizations is my assumption of how important I am on these projects. So
hmm, maybe next time you'll just have to just stay in your lane. No.
nah, f that. My life is short, man. I don't have time to stay in my lane. I can only go up. Seriously.
Yeah. I think there's benefit to being outside of, like, I don't know about you, but if I can see the context of a problem from the moment it starts all the way through the solutioning and be involved in that, development's so easy. It's not, you don't have this back and forth about what to do. Like you've
Uh,
sat there and developed. I mean, that's those conversations have been had. Like,
no, they haven't.
no, just not by, well, so like,
Maybe in your organizations, there's. Okay, I'm listening. I didn't mean to cut you
I
off.
was gonna say, because there's like, there's this product cycle ahead of it,
Hey,
right?
gambler.
Where, you know, something comes up in the business and then there's people that sit and conceptualize about it and figure it out and do research and whatever, and they come up with a solution and then they decide to execute on that. Then they bring in the development team to start working on it. But now you've got all of this context at the head in this product team, and you have the development team come in, and now you're trying to relay that information back and forth. And so there's a lot of like, well, what about this and blah 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 blah. If you get the development team started at the very start of that, where it's even down to like the reasoning why you're or what you're considering, and maybe it's a year down the line before you might even start working on it, but you involve people in those meetings, you're going to be in a lot of meetings, but by the time the development comes, the actual work starts coming in for that thing, boy, you're going to be just like, you'll know the problem in and out. You don't have to do that communication overhead. You have all the same information as the product people.
The the entire development team, or are you just talking about the architect?
Well, I don't think the entire team, maybe, um, but maybe it's just like depending on the initiative, there should be like I feel like there should be somebody who's like from a technical standpoint involved from the in the entire product life cycle, from the onset ideation all the way through the
Yeah,
delivery.
I think that's the architect, right? The architect analyzes the business mission, the objectives that they set forth in order for the business to say that this is how we're going to be successful based on these objectives, and then the architect says, "All right, and then starts providing like the design for how to get there. That hopefully is difficult for the developers that get brought on later to deviate off of. Um, but I think we would both agree that there's going to be unknowns. Period.
Yeah, I
Right.
just I just hate the idea that this is because it's not the same as building like a building like that. I mean, it's definitely like I think the term architect and like developer in terms of thinking about it from a building perspective and all of these kinds of things is just the wrong metaphor for like. And I don't know what a better metaphor would be, and maybe there shouldn't be a metaphor for it. Maybe there should be a its own term, but I don't think of architecture as that. I think of architecture as like a specialty skill about that's specific to being like you have technical resources and how do you utilize those resources.
So like in what was it? Was it
I think I'm gonna be a DBA.
was it Iraq, Afghanistan, or Syria? Did they start coining advisors, which were basically, yeah, we're not going to go in with guns blazing, but we're going to be strapped, but we're going to train your military for you, right? Do you kind of understand the context I'm speaking of? Where they would like send in military advisors, but I'm not sure if it was the word was actually military
Yeah, just
advisors, but they would
advisors.
say
Yep.
advisors.
Yeah, yeah.
I
You
feel like that's
listen to that extreme ownership book. They talk about that exact dynamic in there.
yeah, because the thought process is I would think that with the military, or maybe I'm just completely off because I know nothing about the military, is the advisor when they're providing training, they're advising on tactics. I would think when you get in this type of situation, this is the environment, these are the conditions that you're operating within. This is what is paramount to how you want to execute. A, do this. B, do this. These are your top two priorities, right?
Yeah,
Take cover, radio in status, blah blah blah. I don't know how that works, but I feel like a technical advisor probably would be a better term than architect. And
yeah,
like, why would we care about the actual name? Because people get stuck on the actual like, well, architect for some type of civil engineering is has these responsibilities. Is it
yeah,
that confusion? Because like I guess I'm asking like why do we care if it's an architect if we call it architect or technical advisor?
yeah. No, well, I get what your point is. Like, if the job's the same, why is it different? But
But the job's not
um,
the same way
yeah, it's not. But
because 90% of architects are going to say, yeah, we're going to use Angular and we're going to use SQLite and we're going to use we're going to use Azure. That's our architecture, which I interpret as, yeah, we're going to use a hammer, a screwdriver, and a tape measure. That's our architecture. Like that's the majority of that's what they
yeah,
do when they're told to make a decision, and
yeah,
they're
that's
not
why you're
actually designing. They're not providing a design for the actual business model.
yeah, yeah, you're in that way they're acting as a software advisor. And maybe that is just a better term for what they, really are. I mean, it's like a technology advisor or software advisor. It's definitely different than, yeah. I mean, there are people who lay out. So it's like there's architects who lay out the actual deployment model and think about scalability issues and stuff like that, and capacity issues, because capacity planning when you have systems is, you know can be a big deal. And like that Dell thing we talked about last week, it's like if you don't have someone thinking about the relationship between things and how it's going to realize, like, you could get into real trouble. But so they're like, there is some architecture work there, but yeah, I don't know. That's like not what most of them do. You're right. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I think we just need to overhaul our terms to get away from to get away from this stupid building metaphor. It's not like building a house. You don't like decide on Tuesday because your bathroom didn't work to like shift it to the other side of the house and turn it into a garage. So, and then like the pass to QA to like, this is something that I've wanted to see, and I still haven't yet seen it. Is the idea that an implementation of the full team mentality. I don't know if you've hit this, but the idea that there is no QA, there's no developers, everyone's just part of the team, and if you need to fill in for a different role, you fill in for that role.
Yeah. So
I mean, you have specialty,
by
like people are
default,
better, but
my brain is going to say no, right? And I get upset when people default to no for something that they've never tried on their own. Like I get it,
mhm.
right? Uh, my my concern, and this leads to another conversation, because I feel like anytime you need to get buy-in, this is a lesson I learned. Before you have a meeting, you need to send out a questionnaire and really understand their experience level and exactly what they did when they experienced it. And then you have a meeting about it. Else, that meeting is going to be absolutely worthless. Like, that meeting should be like pretty much signing the deal and not having a conversation about it. Right. I've learned this from the last board review meeting, and I didn't have an opportunity to actually cross-examine the committee on their actual experiences and if they had actual like practices in place to constrain the objective to be successful, right? But to what you're saying, which I'm almost losing my train of thought, is here's a question, right? Have you worked within the capacity of a software tester or QA?
Within the capacity of,
Yeah. Have you
uh,
ever worked in which your role was a tester? Okay.
no,
So the reason why like I struggle to believe that that type of concept will work, or that type of like, I don't know, thing will work is because I really do think that there's segregation of responsibilities in which your mind is like focused and specialized in a core area. So if we're talking about testing, I can ask you the question, right? And I can almost guarantee that your answer is not going to match my answer, right? So if I ask you very briefly, okay, Sean, um, how do you test software? Like how would you respond? Like within like 10 or 15 seconds at most?
how would I test software?
Yeah.
Um, Basically, get the problem description, write out all the variants that I can think of, um, verify that those variants match what the expectation is, bring up any thing that looks weird, edge case, try some exploratory, and then work with the dev team to,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay. And so obviously, like I would disagree, but what you said makes sense to
Mm-hmm.
100% of people for how they would test software. Even to me, even though I disagree with like the mental model of how you would test it, right? So if you go to any like dedicated tester um, that is at a senior level, and their core job, whether it's manual testing or they're at SDET, software development engineering tests, they're more likely to say that my job isn't to validate that the software works. My job is to prove that the software doesn't work and it doesn't meet requirements and it shouldn't be pushed out to production. That's my job. So what I'm explaining is like the whole mental model based on like separation of concerns is completely different. And like
Well, no,
you or other people may disagree with like my answer versus your answer, but like that what I started in testing, right? And then when I graduated from university, I went into development. And that's the way I was groomed. That's the way I was trained. And based on some other shops that I've worked within like QA departments, the people that are very senior, it's a very similar mental model. Their job, even though what you said is true, the mental model is different. They're not there to validate. They're there to to prove that it's not ready. And that's how they operate. So that's the channel that they go down to flush out any type of bugs, like you said, exploratory testing. Like that's their model. And so, make a long story short, I would be surprised if an arbitrary developer on a team can just flip the switch and do a thorough job in software testing. Can they do a thorough job in like quality assurance and say, here's the specification, here's the acceptance criteria for this particular feature or user story? Yep, check. Yeah, but if we're talking about like trying to break the software so that it's really production grade, I think it would be a different role.
no. But see,
Okay.
that's the staying in your lane mentality.
All right.
Like you don't clearly have these capabilities, therefore you shouldn't go this route. Maybe it's just that they don't want to pay the same for those two activities, but like in my mind, every developer should be going through and breaking their own shit before they pass it off. Like that's part of the job is to say the QA shouldn't find anything. Like your job should be to try to make their job obsolete
I, I
because you're
I
responsible for quality. They aren't.
I agree with
Yeah.
you. It's just in practice, I think it's very hard. So, for example, I've been building this app on my off time for like 2 years, and like the UI for that app probably isn't that intuitive to everybody else. But because I've been working on it and I look at it every day or every other day, it makes complete sense to me. Even though it may be effed up visually, to me, it's like I know exactly how it's supposed to work inside and out. And I think with a lot of developers, you may build something and it just clicks with you because you're the power user, right? But to anybody else, they're going to see things that are unfamiliar. They're going to see things that don't really look streamlined. And so, like, I think that's another issue is you build it, you test it, but when you build it, and when you test it, are you testing it really as a user? I
Well,
think that's difficult to really do if you're the one that built it because you're the power user of it.
yeah, yeah. But maybe what I'm saying is when you're in a team situation, like one of the rules that tends to happen is you don't test your own stuff. Like it's always getting a second set of eyes on it. So let's just take the I developed it, therefore I can't test it, which I think is BS too. Because like
True.
if you're diligent and you switch your like mindset when you're doing this, like set it down for a day and come back to it later. I've broken my own shit pretty much like thoroughly as much as I can. That doesn't mean other people still don't find things, but there's a possibility that even a QA wouldn't find those kinds of things. But if I'm testing someone else's stuff and I understand the problem really well, which is the trick to all of this. I mean, I had something come through this week where I like 3, 4 times through a code review, I actually just went and downloaded the code, ran it, found issues, reported them back, and I'm assuming that I do that again and make sure it's all good up to what I think it should be. I'm guessing that the QA people aren't going to find anything on it. Um, but that's somebody else's stuff. So I get the point. Like I said, in a team thing, as long as you have at least, a trio and you actually have dedicated QA people, you should be able to develop like dev test or test somebody else's, another developer's stuff.
Yeah.
Like I don't,
I
and
think
but
it's the first stage.
yeah.
I still think you need a dedicated tester to really like flesh out the edge cases
Well,
that
you need like a specialist that thinks about those kinds of problems around that and helps people develop their skills around it. So
Okay.
I'm thinking of like, so another thing from that extreme ownership book that was in there
Okay.
was
Apparently,
there was a,
I need to get this book because you
well, I'm
keep
thinking
bringing it
about,
up.
well, because it's just fresh in my memory about, so there was like, they talk about when they were first, I think it was when they first in Ramadi, the guy Jocko was telling Leaf, who's the other guy in the book, that everybody on the team needs to learn how to program their radios um, to these different frequencies and stuff like that, which is usually a skill that's performed by the radio person. Um, and there's a dedicated radioman that just does the radio, and they know how to do this stuff. Um, and so Jocko told them, hey, you need to all learn how to do this because it'll save your life. And all of them kind of blew it off. Um, but then he like made it really adamant, like, no, you guys will learn how to do this because it will save your life. And they tell a story about how it did, where there was like a blue on blue situation, which is a like friendly fire, and there's a tank like pointed at them. That was an army tank, and they're Marines, and the army runs on a different frequency than them. And they so in like that particular situation, because they had learned to program their radio in order to talk directly to the tank, that saved their life in that kind of situation. But that's where like, yeah, you can have a dedicated person who's responsible for, making sure that your radios are, in tip top condition and they know this stuff in and out and they're the person like expert you can talk to. But that doesn't mean that nobody else should be able to fulfill that role or do that role, because it's, um, because there's tactical reasons why, or, having those kind of skills spread out, even at a basic level, and being able to pick them up and execute them helps in your mission.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
So
But
it's like,
here's the other
yeah,
question, and I actually like heard this from one of my mentors because the conversation that came up about like developers testing, right? And I'll just say it. He's like, Scott, with the amount of money that they're paying us, they're not paying us the hourly rate to test. They're paying us the hourly rate to build. And so they could pay someone else to test this, right? How would you respond to that?
uh,
So like
yeah, no, I
what
get
he
it.
what I get what he's saying, even though I understand why he's saying it.
Yeah,
I understand the politics behind it. It's like, okay, what is the way I process what he said is the amount of money that they're paying. What is more effective? Build, 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 so that it's 75% like right, and then testing is going to expose the 25% that needs to be adjusted, or do you what they're paying you, you take a third of that time or a half of that time if you really want to consider exhaustive testing. So like what's your comments?
yeah. I guess if you can't solve the problem, there's good money to be made in prolonging it as long as possible. Um, I think developers should be exhaustive testing their own stuff and
Okay.
or writing automated tests probably around it at some level. I don't think that is built out as good as it
Well, I'm
needs to
talking
be.
about the
But
context is manual testing.
yeah, yeah. But I manually test the shit out of my stuff, so I
Okay.
don't understand the. Well, usually I do. It depends on the scope of the change and how big it is, but I don't understand that mentality that the business wants this thing out. And I don't, I mean, having someone double check your work is important, but being like, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to pass it off to someone because they're not getting paid. That's the wrong mentality.
Well, I think where he may have been coming from is where we're going to build the happy path. We're going to account for the most popular or common scenario of a sad path. But that's it. We're not going to go into depth and think about every single edge case that we could think about and code for that as well. If it's not in a spec, then we're not going to burn development hours testing these what if scenarios. Like that's a responsibility for a different department. That's kind of like what I think he was trying to get to.
So then, but what then? They find why would it be at all advantageous for them to do that then, to test those edge cases, other than the happy and the sad path? Because it sounds to me like they really should just be validating that then that the happy path works.
I see both sides.
I mean, because you're
So
just paying,
like
otherwise you're just paying for work that's already done. The developer has already verified the happy path, and your QA is just verifying the happy path, and they don't want anybody to be working on these exception paths. Uh, then what are
I,
you paying the QA for,
yeah, I
other
see
than
both
just to double check?
sides. I see both sides. I my ignorance is like a developer should like they should make sure that their stuff works based on spec. I guess I'm kind of like that factory worker. If it's not in the spec, then it's not my
Yeah,
responsibility, and that's kind of a cop out. But like, yeah, like I want to build, right? I'm going to if you involve me in collaboration, which you should involve me, instead of just a data entry specialist that gets paid a lot of money, then I can help you with the acceptance criteria, in which some of this is going to be related or mapped to like edge cases. But like, if it's not in the spec, then it's not my responsibility. Like, I can totally see someone having that mentality, including myself.
yeah,
And
and that's the thing is that
that's the argument of why you should involve them,
and
right?
sometimes you're expected to stay in that lane is what I'm saying, and that goes back to the original thing is I want to be involved from the time the spec starts,
Yeah.
and understand the reasonings behind everything, the whys and the how comes, because otherwise you're just spending a lot of time in conversations that don't need to happen.
Always worked in small enough companies to work on specking out things, developing them, and testing them. So I never participated in this role, splitting much.
Yeah,
That's cool.
and then maybe that's why like my head, like I've always wanted to gravitate more towards smaller. I haven't been in a lot of small companies, but like I've always wanted, like I feel like that would be a better place for me because I do want to be involved in everything. And once the organization gets big, they try to make sure that you're only involved in your little tiny piece of the world,
Yeah.
and that's like painful for me maybe.
I mean, I kind of like feel the same way. I want to own what I do with less people trying to enforce why they're relevant to the project that affects my work.
Yeah, but
Uh,
anyways.
in regards to what I plan on doing next Friday
Mm-hmm.
is I'm actually tweeting right now. Hold on 1 second. Uh, how much should developers test? Okay, sent. I was gonna say I gotta create a small sample Android Hello World app that spins up that reproduces this bug that I submitted to Microsoft because they don't want to do it. And I feel like I'm at a standstill with this passion project, man. Like I mean, I'm sure that there's some like logistical like features that I could build for the rental part, for a courier coming back to pick up equipment. I mean, I guess I could work on that, but that's still based on the service bus. Like, I mean, I can mock it out for now, but to me, that's not the MVP. It's necessary, but it's not like a showstopper, right? I don't have to get that done anytime soon. So I don't know. What do you think I should do based on? me probably being blocked for the next probably like 40 to 60 days.
Oh man, 40 to 60 days. I would
I worked on
look
my
at.
talk. I worked on my conference talk for an hour yesterday morning. The error of their ways.
Yeah,
Yeah, right now I'm up to like I think it's like maybe 12 slides. I estimate it'll probably be about 24 slides. First, I discussed the settings, and then the anti patterns, and then the last part, the things that could have been done differently that probably would reduce the probability of failure. Like, so I plan on like allocating like 2 hours a week on that.
well, I mean, if Azure Service Bus keeps being like a hindrance to you, have you thought about just seeing what you could do to build an alternative out? Um,
What's an alternative? AWS, or literally like doing like RESTful calls with polling. That's what Service Bus is. It has polling built into it
yeah,
every second.
I mean, if you can get Signal R to function correctly,
SignalR works.
yeah.
It's
Well,
Service
then
Bus client
you're
that
not.
doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah. So you have a two-way. You've got a two-way mechanism, API calls and Signal R, or whatever you want to do there. So you've
Oh,
got
you're
two
talking about
ways.
using that as a alternative implementation detail.
Yeah, I mean, do you have any problem with Azure Service Bus on the server side? Because if you just put a layer of abstraction in there to handle it,
On
you'd
the
be just
server
probably
side,
fine.
on the server side, I can almost guarantee it's fine because I'm almost positive that's what it was designed for. It's the mobile client, it's the Android, and probably iOS. I haven't even looked at iOS. I
All
don't
right.
even want to do the iOS work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's a challenge maybe for you then. So if you think you'd be 60 to 90 days so you could get this resolved, maybe what you should do is imagine right now that you're in a situation where you don't have an option. You're like coming up to the deadline is in 2 weeks to get an initial cut, or you lose all your funding that you, let's just say, fictitiously have to work on this.
That's it.
Figure it out. You got 2 weeks to figure it out. But let's say it's a week
You know how
even.
much
You want to
rework
make
that
it hard?
is?
Be creative, man.
You say be creative. It's two separate mobile applications that
Yeah.
relay status to each other. Client applications.
Yep. Be creative.
What you mentioned about using Signal R as an alternative actually like makes sense. I feel like that's more like chaos engineering as a fallback. Um,
Well, there's some benefit to it. I mean, I don't know what the like the service bus. Like I said, I don't know that it's used this way very often because there's
I don't think
probably
so.
security concerns, and usually the people want to have some sort of gateway in front of it that they can scale out and do filtering and stuff on before they get to there. Um, I mean, if it is just the communication back and forth, is that it that you're using it for right now? Trouble.
Yeah,
You should be able to replace
right
that
now
module.
the I'm going to start using the word epic. The epic I'm working on right now is getting all this stuff lifted from my local from processes running on my local machine to an Azure server
Hmm.
deployed, right? And so like this is pretty much it. This is the last piece of endpoints or connections that I need to test on or that I need to get deployed and sitting on a server instead of sitting on my local like laptop. And then like I'm the next phase is testing, right? Making sure that like locations are working, making sure that when you order something that you have all these different pickup locations and all that stuff is working properly from start to finish. Like I'm literally wrapping up with this MVP,
Yeah.
and literally the universe does not want me to deliver this. So
So just to be clear, that like, is there like 10 different service bus connections the client's making that you all would need to rewrite, or is it just this one?
it's one. It's
Or two on either
two.
side?
it's yes, it's one service bus connection per mobile client, right? And then you get these a plethora of topics that you subscribe to for each client, and then they start getting status relays back and forth as they chat back and forth about their location and what historical event just occurred in regards to order fulfillment.
Okay, and you know you can get it to work on the server side for
Yeah,
Service
I
Bus.
mean it was designed for the server. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So just put a layer of abstraction in there that takes Service Bus out of your front end. You've abstracted it away on the front end or on your client, I'm sure. So you
yeah.
should be able to build an adapter between the back and front end, use Signal R as the incoming outgoing, and just, I mean, delegate that responsibility to the server side. Big thing will be to how to like
That I have to build out
route it.
hella infrastructure on the server, like so all the different
But all your
topics.
funding is going to be gone in a week if you don't do this, man.
Can we think of an alternative thing I could work on? Like, is there any other infrastructure I could build that would have value
Well, I mean, this could
as
have
infrastructure?
value if like maybe it's a better way to do it.
Better way of doing it was just go AWS, and I would be more marketable.
Yeah. Well, you could go and switch over to their messaging. There's no reason you can't mix them. Be a fun project.
The last one is I've been consistently dedicating 2 hours to learning Clojure. I do an hour personal study, then
Hmm.
an hour mentoring session with Sergey in Germany. I have no desire to keep going, but I have to. Like right, and maybe I've been given Clojure enough time where like all of a sudden the light bulb goes off and like everything has to be done in Clojure now. Just like right now, everything has to be done in F sharp.
Hmm.
But I'm literally like doing something I don't want to do only because I have someone mentoring me. And that's the only reason is I don't want to waste their time because I had my time wasted before when I tried to mentor other people that tapped out after like 3 weeks. So that's just a status update with that.
Well, I mean, the thing is with that maybe is to give yourself a is to talk to them and be like, figure out where your next like objective is with it. That you would feel like you would be able to say that they didn't waste their time with you
Yeah,
because like I'm sure that you don't need to come out of it saying now I'm now the biggest I am now the like expert Clojure developer. Maybe your objective is to say like I want to be able to go into a job that uses Clojure, understand the code easy enough where I can participate and I could do small feature requests and things. um, are you there? What do you need to get there? So I don't know, man. Figure out an objective, talk to them about the objective, and be like, "This is what I want to accomplish." And
he was saying that I should consider writing a service enclosure for my passion project in order for things to really sink in.
yeah, you gotta. You could write a replacement for your problem here in Clojure.
Yeah, so maybe I'll marinate on that part. So, uh, that's it. Anything with you? Isn't your Ludum Dare?
Yeah, yeah. Ludum Dare's this weekend, so it starts at 5 Central Time this afternoon. So as soon as I'm done with work, I'm switching over to that. And
You're not
tomorrow
gonna be
morning, oh,
you're not gonna be burned out.
oh no, tomorrow
After
morning.
okay.
Oh, I was gonna say tomorrow morning I'm running a 10K
Oh,
again.
yeah, you just do
It's
Ludum
six
Dare.
it's 6 miles.
Then run a 10K.
Yeah, well, but I'm taking time away, so I'll probably lose 2 hours. So it's a 46 hour or a
How much how much
45
weight have
hour.
you shed in the past 2 months?
Not much.
Really?
Yeah.
I lost weight. I don't know if you can tell, but I've been my stomach. Yeah, I lost weight, man. So
No,
I don't know.
I've
People think I'm smoking crack. Like I lost weight, man.
I think I've lost some muscle mass. But I'm down maybe 10 pounds, but that's about it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm able to do my pull ups easier. So like I do sets of 7, and like I would struggle on the 7th rep after like the 3rd set, and now I'm like just I worked out yesterday in the yard, so I think that's the only. I mean, that's one of the advantages is my workouts are becoming easier when I'm out in the yard doing my pull ups and my dips. So
So last 2 Ludum Dares, I think I have not actually finished a game. Because we're on Ludum Dare 49. When was the last one I submitted to? One second. Oh, shit. Let's see here. My games. So, geez. So it's been, yeah. Apparently I haven't submitted for 47 to 48. So the last 2 ones I haven't finished something on. So like my only goal for this one is to actually submit something again. Because like I think the 2 times ago I was in like just a bad place mentally and just had no desire to finish. This last time I had an idea, I just couldn't execute it on in time because it just came too late. So like I have no goal other than to submit something.
how do you spec it out, or you don't? You just
It's just usually just because usually what I end up doing when I've been successful is I get an idea, I build out like as much crap as I can for it, and then on Sunday morning I realize that I can't finish my initial plan, so I try to take all of the stuff I've built and see how can I take this and turn it into this in the time that's left, or turn it into something else. So like I had this whole thing built out. This Ludum Dare 38. I had this whole plan built out with these ships and all of this stuff, and there's no way I was going to finish that. So I turned it into like a cookie clicker type game where you go around to planets and you collect resources that are mined, and it's like then you can add more, and it just becomes this big like massive cookie clicker type game. but it was a complete game. It where like you could work on it. It was kind of okay. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just kind of come up with ideas and then work on it, I suppose.
you need John Blow on your team.
Yeah, no. I tried to when I was doing my podcast back in the day, I tried to contact him to do a podcast, see if he'd go on, but he never responded.
I wonder if people would freak out if John Carmack entered Ludum Dare.
Maybe not the guy who created Minecraft Notch. He used to do Ludum Dare.
Yeah,
One of the reasons I think it gained in popularity.
is he still like manically depressed or whatever?
I don't know. Probably.
I don't even know who he is. I just remember listening to John Thomas talk about him in one of his video clips about like having money doesn't like solve happiness or whatever, and he used the Minecraft developer as an example.
Yeah. Yeah, he's still tweeting and stuff. I know that he's making games, but
Gambler says, I enjoy John Blow's rants on stuff. Oh, so John Blow has like a strong opinions.
he's a very opinionated
John
developer.
Blow rants. Does he text it or does he? Let me see. I'm going to share my screen. Is there like any link? I mean, I don't really pay attention to game developers, but I just want to see very briefly. Let me share my screen real fast. This says, but first, an unprovoked rant about Jonathan. Oh, it's a rant about Jonathan Blow. No, I want to hurry up and see him ranting about something. And this is where like we probably part ways on this mind. What's this thing called? I'm suffering from early stages of dementia. Masterminds. This mastermind
Yeah.
session. John Blow rants. I just want to. Okay, let me see this one.
Open source software has been stagnant for 20 plus years. If I thought it was doing a good job, why would I have to do something else?
Okay, so time out. He looks like a wrestler.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what I'm talking about?
No, but I could see it.
He looks. I don't know the name. This wrestler is an
Like
actor in movies now.
Yeah, Batista. Is it Dave Batista?
Okay, so let's look at
Nah.
this image, and then let's look at the dude. They look alike, man. Hold up, hold up, hold up, yo. You can't
Because they're
tell me
both
they don't look
bald and
like. You can't
kind of
tell me they don't look
muscular.
like. Dude, they're brothers. My brain immediately said, "Yo, he looks like a wrestler." It's amazing how my brain can pattern match like this. Like if I was like a cop and I saw like a image profile and this was the person that I needed to be looking for, I would ultimately pick up John Blow, thinking he was Batista. I would just think that he just stopped working out and he got off the steroids. You can't tell me they don't look alike, dude.
Yeah, they look alike.
All
I
right.
mean, just in a way.
They both look like they have like some like
Oh man,
Kazakhstan like
all
roots.
bald people look the same to me. Just kidding.
That means I look like them too.
Wait, no, they don't. They're not fully bald though. They just have short hair. Maybe that's the
No, I
commonality
mean
here.
they're probably bald now, but all right, I'll let you go. I'm gonna watch this video though.
Alrighty, I'm
All
gonna
right,
head
see
out
ya.
now. See ya.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Stop screen. Gambler says he has very strong opinions. Yeah, I'm gonna watch this. Hold up. Am I still sharing my screen? I'm gonna try to go running too.
Open source software also almost never does anything creative. All they ever do is copy other things in a kind of a bad way. They're very bad at creativity for some reason. You will never know why I don't submit pull requests. The idea of a pull request is offensive, kind of, right? It's like, hey, go do all this work. And then the guy, you can submit to me your request that I pay attention to your work. And then the guy who decides what goes in, will decide to take your work or not, right? And if I decide not to, then you wasted your time, right? Like everyone pretends open source is super democratic, but there's inherently a very strong class structure there, right? So if you submit pull requests, you're kind of lower class in a sense, right? Especially on a giant project like LLVM. The fact that I think they have such bad taste in everything, there's something very negative about submitting to the judgment of people who you believe have very bad taste. Do you know what I mean? What's the alternative to pull requests for open source? Just everyone commit whatever? No, have some kind of mechanism by which you admit trusted people, and then just don't take contributions from other people.
I agree. Like,
I don't
hold
know
up.
how you work that out, but you
Time
work that.
out. I agree. Do you know how annoyed I get at jobs when they force pull requests? And I'm like, this isn't even production. This is a greenfield project. We're a development team. Like, why do we need to go through this hard iron fist process? Like, why can't we just casually just check in code and then like talk about it later? And then if it's really an issue, like create a work item to address it and track it until it gets resolved. Like, why do we have to stop everything that we're doing, submit a pull request, and wait and wait and wait? Suspend all the work that we're doing and wait until it finally gets reviewed. And then, oh, we got feedback. Oh, shoot. Right. Let me implement this feedback and then submit another pull request and wait and wait and wait. Oh, I just got one more feedback item. Okay. Let me address this one feedback item, submit another pull request and wait and wait and wait. Like, that doesn't make sense. The majority of developers in our industry are retarded. they don't understand how disruptive this behavior is, and they think that a code review is the only way, or they think a pull request is the only way to do a code review. And it's like, dude, stop drinking the Kool-Aid, man. There's alternative ways. Research it. Like, read a book. So like, that's my issue, man. What are you saying here? You say there was also the zero MQ guy philosophy around. He liked merge pull requests even if they had issue and preferred to fix or roll back in worst case. Yeah, I don't like, for open source software. Like, I get it, it's relevant, it's important because you don't know your contributors sometimes or most of the time. I get it, and even for things that are like hella sensitive or mission critical and people will die, I get that too. Like, I get that. Like, so I'm not against pull requests. I just think it should be really based on context and not based on stupidity. So like, in order to keep up the morals of the contributors, yeah. Yeah, like I it's great when it's someone that's really smart says what I'm thinking and is able to articulate it in a clearer way than I can. Like, I hate development shops. And it's like 90% of them, man. Like, the majority of people don't read books to learn alternative ways of thinking. And it annoys me. I don't like working with people that don't read books. All right, I'm done.
That out somehow. I think that would result in higher quality and much less friction. Yeah, it's like for anything the level of complexity that LLVM or whatever is, either people really know the code and can contribute, or they barely know the code and it takes more effort to make their stuff usable than is worth it. It's like you could have just done it faster, right? And that's sort of the flaw in the open source patches welcome model. Is it doesn't exactly conceptually make sense. The open source philosophy is, the current open source philosophy is, everybody can program and everybody can check stuff in, and it's always positive to do that and help. And you're building the software along with everyone else. So I think if someone sees someone like Casey criticize code that's checked in that way, it might at least subliminally and maybe consciously reverberate like, oh, if I check in something, I could be judged in such a negative way, and I don't want that. But actually, like, that rah, everybody's happy and holding flowers picture of software development is wrong. It matters if you check in stuff that is very good.
Hold up. You're saying the audio's going out? Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I don't think there's anything I can do about that.
Or if you check in stuff that is mediocre, or if you check in stuff that is bad. That matters. It matters a lot. And people need to be aware that it matters. And the way that you evaluate that is via people having strong opinions about what is good code and what is not good code, right? There may be more or less productive ways to express those opinions, for sure, but if you lose that culture of technical judgment about what is good and what is bad, then software is over. Then literally software becomes critical basket weaving, right? And you might feel happy about that for a couple of years because you get to participate and feel good, but like, it's not a good place to go. You don't want computers to go there. So there's two levels to this. If what you're objecting to is the criticism, then you're just anti-engineering, and that's no good, right? If what you're objecting is the flavor and attitude and the nature with which Casey was expressing his criticism, then there's a little bit more of a point there. However, again, you eliminate that at your peril, right? It is well known that many of the greatest contributors to society, not just in software, but in all science and technology and the arts everywhere, many of those people have been hard to work with for one reason or another. And partially that's because they care tremendously about what they are doing. They care tremendously about.
Hold on. Let's repeat that. So we're at minute 4:52. Let's repeat what he just said. I think I'll fall into this category. Hold up. I'll do a 4:51.
They care tremendously about the form in which
450.
about what they are doing. They care tremendously about the
No.
form in one reason or another, and partially that's because they care tremendously about what they are doing.
Apparently, I'm still right here.
Society, not just in software, but in all. It is well known that many of the greatest contributors to society, not just in software, but in all science and technology and the arts everywhere, many of those people have been hard to work with for one reason or another. And partially that's because they care tremendously about what they are doing. They care tremendously about the form in which they are working. All right. You might say, oh, but that guy doesn't need to be crotchety and mean about that thing. But you can't like take away that part of the personality and have everything else, right? Because that part of the personality is quite likely an integral part of what made the rest of the artists or the scientists as good as they are.
Absolutely. Gambler, you agree with that, right? Oh, that's what you mean. Okay. Uh, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he stuttered or something, and it was edited out. But like, you hear what he's saying, and like, I've always said the same thing. Like, if Steve Jobs wasn't a jerk, if Elon Musk wasn't a jerk, if a lot of people weren't jerks, will we really have the lifestyles that we have? Would America or would the United States be in fourth place, or would it be in like eighth place in regards to leading technology? And notice, I didn't say first place because I don't think they're in first place, right? I don't know. Maybe first place is like South Korea or Japan or something. But if we didn't have people that were jerks that really cared and kept on progressing, even if we didn't like their personalities and we wanted to cancel them on Twitter, like if they didn't show that amount of dedication, like where would we really be? And I completely agree with them, man. Except when I do it, uh, I'm hard to work with because I'm not a billionaire and I don't, well, that and I haven't actually created certain technologies that these other people have in which they actually can earn the right to be a jerk. That's the difference is they have no notoriety and they've actually produced, they were successful at producing something that society appreciates. And I haven't done that. So I don't have the respect that they have. Yeah.
Right? You can't like just decide Albert Einstein should have had a different personality, but he should have still done all the cool relativity stuff and figured all that out. And then I'm going to sit on my couch and eat Cheetos and I'll criticize Einstein for not being a good person in some certain way that 100 years later I decide is the right way to be. But I will take all the stuff that he contributed because it helps me eat Cheetos, and that's great, right? That's so like that. It is important for us to see that kind of
Hypocrisy.
lazy, bloated, fat social criticism of others as being as toxic as it actually is, and as being as unproductive and decay-inducing as it actually is. That's way more toxic than a programmer saying angry things. That kind of criticism, because that kind of criticism that's in vogue in places like Twitter right now is at a large scale, it will destroy human society. Whereas the crotchety programmer thing on a large scale built a large part of the human society that we have right now. Okay. So like, be very careful with that stuff. And on my part, I feel that one of the better contributions that I can make is to not tolerate that kind of criticism. Like, I just won't put up with it. You know, if you come to this channel with that kind of thing, I'll just ban you because it's stupid, and I don't have time for it. And yeah, there's too much of it. It's cheap. It's cheap. All it is posturing so that, you know, the person making the criticism can feel better, can show other people that they are a good person. And it's gross. It's really gross, and it's destructive. We don't need it.
All right. Well, that wasn't really a rant. That was some like
Open source
discussing
software
stuff. So, all right, I'm about to start my day. See ya, gambler. I'm not sure if you're still in, but I'm out. And take care and enjoy your weekend. That's it. So, all right, bye.